Dr. McCoy, thank you for the quick feedback on the Senate bill. That's very helpful. Mr. Collard, one of the things I would ask you to do in future testimony is when you use the word standardized, be sure to say that that doesn't mean centralized, because I think one of the issues we've got is that centralization sometimes cannot be the solution. Mr. McClain, you hit the nail on the head today. You said that we have a unique opportunity to reform the VA, and that if we don't do it well, that we'll be here again. And with that in mind, that generates my question. If I'd like each of you to spend about 90 seconds telling me what the VA of the 21st century would look like, and totally disregard what the VA is today. Disregard the people, the bricks and mortar, disregard everything. What does the VA of the 21st century look like? But what does it have in terms of people, culture, systems, leadership, use of private sector resources? Is there a need for a union in the VA? And so let's touch on that. And I'm down to actually about a minute for each of you. And I'd really appreciate it if you would provide some feedback in writing afterwards. I know you're doing this as volunteers, but you have the best interests of our veterans at heart. So if you can follow up in writing, that'd be awesome. But just a minute from each of you. And let's start with you, Mr. McClain.
Thank you, sir. To put it in as few words as possible, I would say it has to be veteran-centric. In other words, you put the veteran in the middle and you build the system around. So you have teams in an integrated fashion providing care coordination and integrated care to the veteran. And the metric is outcomes, health outcomes. How long did you extend the life of this particular veteran? How long did you extend the quality of life of this particular veteran? And right now we're not measuring any of that.
Okay. Mr. Collard, in about a minute.
I think it's a Veterans Health Care Administration that has as one of its chief focal points the ability to reduce variance in all practices, or in as many practices as can be. And what that can mean is the practice of access for our veterans, the practice of care environment for our physicians. You know, on the private side, we joke that a physician typically works in 4 hospitals: the daytime hospital, the nighttime hospital, the weekend hospital, and the holiday hospital. And I can just imagine how many different versions there are in veterans hospitals today. So the ability to reduce that variance, to standardize those practices, and when identified as a true vetted best practice, the ability to move very quickly across the system to implement those best practices.
Okay, Dr. McCoy.
Yes, let me point out, and I'm very grateful to be here today, that your time is valuable, but time is also extremely valuable for these vets who are waiting, who are stuck in these waiting lists. 63,000 who waited a decade and never got a first appointment, and now 57,000 who are currently waiting for their first appointment over 90 days. So I would point out that this bill that you will be considering establishes 2 commissions. One, to study the issue of VA construction, what's gone wrong, the delays, the cost overruns, and where construction is needed.
I don't want to talk about legacy. I just like to talk about a path forward.
Make this point. Don't waste your time with another commission. In 2012, you had a commission do that. Read the report. I'm sure that the new commission will find exactly what the commission found 2 years ago. They discussed Las Vegas, Denver, St. Louis, all the places that had those construction problems. And secondly, this bill calls for another commission to discuss staffing and healthcare needs, particularly the need for physicians. You had a study like that done 2 years ago, in 2012. I urge you to read it. It will save you a lot of time if you want to fix this while the vets who are sick are waiting for care.
Again, I'd ask each of you to think about this, back out of the weeds a little bit and think about this from a 50,000 foot overview. What does the VA of the 21st century look like? If we could start all over again and not worry about any of the past sins or the postmortems or any of that crud, what does the VA of the 21st century look like? And again, I agree, it should be veteran-centric. So if that's the vision, I want you guys to tell me what the structure is. And again, I don't have time for that, so if you can follow up in writing, that'd be awesome.